Hello, and welcome back to the allotment. Yep, the sweetcorn's still growing really well, and it's got these tassels on, and it's got some silks on. And that's the reason I've come to the allotment today, is to talk mostly about sweetcorn. We'll look at carrots as well, and we'll look at a few other bits and bobs, the potatoes. Mostly, we're here to discuss sweetcorn. Okay, I've moved out of the sweetcorn plot so that you can see me a little bit better. And hopefully you can hear me over the noise of radios. We don't want any copyright infringements, do we? At any rate, here we are in amongst the sweetcorn. It's the 1st of August and it's growing beautifully. This bed was amended with 32 wheelbarrow loads of horse manure that Peter at the other end of the plots acquired for us. So that was very good. Nitrogen is really important to the growth of sweetcorn. We planted the seeds in root trainers at home. You'll have to look at old videos to get the exact time frame, but somewhere around the beginning of May, late April. It grew very nicely indoors in the warmth of the house, and later in May I brought it to the polytunnel, where it was less susceptible to a late frost. Our last average date of frost is the 2nd week of May. So I brought it here in the beginning of May, left it in the polytunnel. It grew very vigorously with the extra light it was getting. And on or around the 13th of June, when we were definitely way past any chance of any reasonable expectation of frost, I planted it out in the ground here. I've subsequently hilled it up, which you've seen perhaps in a previous video, and I've applied a little bit of 20-10-10 granular fertilizer. I've hilled it up with this draw hoe, this one, just dragged up, drawn up the soil around the roots, and as you can see, it's withstood the storm that we had yesterday, the day before. We had not as high winds as they have in the southwest of England and possibly other parts of the country, but with some fairly stiff breezes, and it stayed upright, which is really, really good. So anyway, let's have a little look now what's happening with it at this stage. I use the single tine cultivator to point out that these on all of these plants is the male part. We'll look closely in a second. These are the male parts which drop the pollen down to these female parts. These are called tassels and these are called silks. And corn, sweet corn, is a grass, and what we're after is the seeds of that grass. Pollen drops down onto the silks, and you need at least one piece of pollen on each silk, and it travels down, you'll have to probably look that up, it's a bit beyond my full comprehension. But the pollen comes down, lands on the silk, fertilizes the embryonic little seeds in this emerging cob, and they swell up, and that's what we like to eat. This is a variety called Honeydew Improved. It's an F1 hybrid, which is the offspring of 2 crosses. Excuse me while the train passes. Yeah, so an F1 hybrid is the stable offspring of 2 different parents. If I was to grow this seed, it would not be Honeydew Improved F1 hybrid. It would be, I think, an F2 they call it, and it wouldn't be anything like the same. Sweetcorn also pollinates very, very freely, partly because it's a grass and it's wind pollinated, so it relies very much on the pollen blowing around, and that is what causes a problem if you try and save the seed, because everybody on the allotment is growing a different variety, and the ones that are tasseling and silking at the same time, they'll be blowing pollen around at the same time, so you'll end up with some random cross, which, you know, if you were to save the seed, might not be particularly vigorous or particularly strong. So that's why we don't really save our sweetcorn seed. We save, we buy it every year from a reliable source. So there we go. That about wraps up the sweetcorn. It's growing really well. I'm very happy with its progress at the moment. Let's just have a look at a few other things that are going on in the plot as this continues to develop into fantastic sweetcorn cobs. This late planted kohlrabi and tree cabbage and other bits and bobs is starting to look quite nice. The potatoes I've trimmed in the potato experiment. The only plant that survived the blight is this one. I'm not quite sure why. So yeah, pot number 9 is the only one that didn't really succumb to to early blight. I'm not sure why that is. It's possible that I've planted in error a different variety of potato. I don't believe it's Sarpomira. It might be. Sarpomira is the other potato that I planted around the plot. It's a very blight resistant variety. We will find out when we dig it up. If it's a sort of red potato, it's almost certainly a Sarpomira. If it's a white potato with little pink eyes, it's King Edward. That beholds the question, if it's a King Edward, why didn't it succumb to blight like the rest of the pots? Even its companion growing in that pot succumbed to early blight. So maybe there's just something special about this plant. Maybe it's because it was in nice shop bought compost with added 20-10-10 nitrogen fertilizer, 20% nitrogen fertilizer. Maybe that made it a very strong, vigorous plant. But then why didn't its counterpart, its colleague, do so well? This is why we do experiments. So let's find out in a couple of weeks how they're getting on. I'm hoping that all the other ones where I've cut the leaves off will continue to develop tubers. And maybe this one is going to win the race for the highest yield. We'll find out. I'll bring you over to look at this as we pull them out, but these carrots are doing slightly better than I expected. I pulled some out the other day and they didn't have a hint of carrot fly on, which really did surprise me. So yeah, let's get on and pull these out and come and have a look, see how they look. Okay, so hopefully, I don't think it's going to be the world's biggest carrot, but it's going to be a carrot. There we go, it's only a small one actually, so we can get a slightly better one. There we go, look. Yeah, they're just going to be nice small carrots. Oh, that was very small. There we go, hopefully you can see those. It's a nice little bunch of carrots, just something to nibble on as a little snack really. Next year we'll buy some fresh seeds and we'll have a slightly better crop hopefully. But look, they're nice and clean. They haven't got any black lines on where the carrot root fly has been in there. They'll be very nice, very tasty.